For decades, there was this promise, wasn't there? A kind of dream that we were all sold. It was supposed to be the bedrock of society, right? The goal everyone was working towards. And it looked a little something like this.
First, it all started with a stable job. Something secure, a foundation you could actually build a life on.
Next up, you'd buy a home. And I don't just mean a house. I mean a real home, your own little piece of the world. And the whole point of all of this? The end game? To build a future that was even better, even more secure than the one your parents had.
So if that was the blueprint, why does it feel like the plans just don't match reality anymore? All right, let's get into why that dream feels so completely impossible now.
The middle class wasn't built overnight. And here's the thing. It isn't disappearing by accident. It is being slowly, methodically squeezed from all sides, while most of us are just too busy trying to survive to even notice it's happening.
So let's talk about the first big reason for this squeeze. It's the one you feel every single time you go to the grocery store or open a bill.
Just think about it. You see the list right here. Rent, food, healthcare, education. The cost of just living didn't just go up a little bit, it skyrocketed. For decades, the price of these essentials has just blown past inflation. But what about the money we're earning?
And this chart, wow, it lays it out so simply, it's almost brutal. Just look at that gap. The cost of living is on an absolute rocket ship, while wage growth has barely even gotten off the launch pad. What this means is that even if you're working harder than ever before, you are mathematically falling further behind.
And let's be really, really clear about this. This isn't some kind of personal failure. It is not about being lazy or not budgeting well enough. It's just cold, hard math.
Okay, let's move on to the next pillar of that dream we talked about, the home. Because the very idea of what a house even is in our economy has totally changed.
See, it used to be that a house was a place for a family to live, to put down roots. Now, for a lot of powerful players, it's just a financial asset on a spreadsheet. When huge corporations and investors start buying up entire neighborhoods, housing stops being about community and starts being about profit. And that prices out millions of regular people, taking away the single biggest tool the middle class has ever had for building wealth.
Which, of course, brings us to the third part of this squeeze. Because if you're not building wealth with a home and your paycheck isn't keeping up with costs, how do you get by? Well, for millions, the answer has become debt.
The middle class used to be defined by its ability to save. Today, it's pretty much defined by its debt. You've got student loans for an education that, honestly, might not lead to a job that can pay them off. You've got credit cards just to bridge the gap between paychecks. And one bad medical emergency, that can wipe out a lifetime of careful saving. This isn't just about money, it's a constant weight. Debt keeps you running in place, always working to pay off the past instead of building for the future.
All right, now let's dig into the nature of work itself and how wealth is really made in today's world. Because it turns out, we're not all climbing the same ladder anymore. In fact, we're living in two completely separate economic realities.
That whole idea of a stable, long-term career, well, for a lot of people, it's basically a relic of the past. It's been replaced by contracts, by gig work, by short-term roles. Now, this shift was great for corporate bottom lines, right? It cut their costs, and more importantly, it transferred all the risk, all the instability, directly onto the worker. Security was basically moved from the people to the profits.
And this chart, this shows you the whole game right here. Our system now rewards owning things exponentially more than it rewards doing things. Your income, that's the money from your job, it goes up slowly. But wealth, that's the value of assets you own. Stocks, real estate, that stuff grows on its own. So if all you have to sell is your time and your labor, you're on the slow path. But if you have capital, your money makes money while you sleep. And that gap gets wider every single year.
So, with all these huge structural forces pushing down on people, why does it so often feel like a personal failure? Well, that's not an accident. That is the final and maybe the most brilliant piece of this whole puzzle, the psychological trap.
You've heard it a million times, right? Just work a little harder. Cut out the avocado toast. Make a better budget. Just be more positive. This whole narrative is incredibly powerful because it takes a massive, broken system and puts all the blame squarely on the shoulders of the individual.
But the problem isn't your mindset. It's the structure. It's the basic rules of the game that we are all forced to play by. And as long as we keep blaming individuals for systemic problems, guess what? The system itself never, ever has to change.
So when you put all these pieces together, you see it. The middle class isn't just vanishing into thin air. It's being actively dissolved, piece by piece, by inflation that crushes wages, by a housing market that serves investors first, and by a culture that swaps security for debt.
Which really leaves us with one final critical question. If we all keep pretending these are just a bunch of individual problems, how can we ever hope to fix a systemic one?
Look, if this explainer made you think or see things in a new way, do us a favor and hit that like button. It really helps get the word out. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your own experiences with this great squeeze in the comments. And of course, subscribe for more explainers that break down how our world actually works.
Because at the end of the day, you can't win a game when you don't even know the rules you're playing by. Understanding the system is the absolute first step to navigating it. And maybe, just maybe, starting to change it. Thanks for taking the time to understand with us.